It's like when you step away from the chaos and all of a sudden your body's supposed to go into this like rest and digest state, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's when the symptoms flare.
Yep, 100%.
Hello and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Willison. This week, we are diving into part 2 of chronic pain. And this time, instead of diving into our thoughts and feelings about having to live with chronic pain, the identity of chronic pain, how to explain chronic pain and communicate it properly, we're diving into a new healing modality to add to your toolbox for chronic pain. And it's called Pain Reprocessing Therapy. Now, I don't want to spill too much tea up front, but there are a lot of opinions on why PRT is great and why people don't want to do PRT. So I'm very excited to get y'all's reaction and responses to this kind of therapy. But to level set, I want everyone to hear it from me in the first 5 minutes of this episode. PRT therapy, pain reprocessing therapy, does not negate structural damage. PRT actually does the exact opposite, and it acknowledges and confirms actual real physical pain and then helps your brain learn how to deal with it in a healthier, better way that can maybe be a lower volume than how you currently experience it. Now, this topic was so important to me because, as I've shared before, I deal with CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome. So I started looking outside the box in like early 2023-ish, I would say. And it's been a long, windy road and journey trying out different things, everything from hypnosis to quantum energy healing to vagal nerve toning and now to pain reprocessing therapy. I will put my arms up. I'm learning it live with you guys, but that also is important to me because I want to share my real responses and reactions to the things that I'm trying and see if they're actually helpful for managing pain. The reason why I was attracted to PRT specifically, though, was this concept that, one, it's dialing down my pain. And the way I've always described my pain is that my body has a really high pain tolerance. I can withstand a high amount of pain, but the way my body negotiates with that pain is not high. It is highly, highly sensitive, and that is debilitating at times. So I am at a point finally where I think I'm open-minded and curious enough and out of my way enough that I can say I'm willing to do some work here, and I'm honestly very interested to see how it will impact me and how it will help me. And so I had to bring a very special guest on to do this with me who is an expert in this and also a chronic pain patient. Felt like she would understand all the different lenses and thoughts running through my head as we dove into PRT. So this episode is all about pain reprocessing, and it's led by Vanessa Blackstone from Alan Gordon's Pain Reprocessing Center. Quick housekeeping, as I always do. Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, post a link on YouTube, post a link on Facebook or Reddit, share it with your friend and family. Do anything that you want to do, or just listen and enjoy, because that in and of itself means the world to me. Just having you here with me, ready to take on pain together. We're going to get through this, and we're going to be all the better for it after. Personally, I would say my pain has been difficult this year. It's been difficult for the last 12 months. Ever since my injury, it's just been, I had been at such a good place, and then I had such a low. And so climbing back up that mountain has been challenging physically and mentally and emotionally, and really pressed me in so many more ways than I thought it ever could, which has been overwhelming. And that's really allowed pain to fester and become more overwhelming, unfortunately. And when I think about the tools that I've been using, I am not disappointed in myself, but maybe a little bit. I've been lackluster in my effort. I think battling depression this year made me, the victim's not a right word, but made me more controlled by my pain. Meaning I didn't want to leave the house to go do infrared sauna. I didn't want to leave the house to get a lymphatic drainage massage. I didn't want to leave the house to go to physical therapy because I was in such a crippling depressive state for such a long time. And functioning like I wasn't. So it wasn't like I was letting people in to help me either. And I think that just compounded over and over and over again to the point where I kind of got to a breaking point with my pain. And I've really only leaned on Western medicine of late to deal with it. And I know that that's also not the right answer for my body. Totally is for some parts of my body, but not all of it. Because I do think that my consciousness and the way that the lens my brain views pain through is critically tied to the way that I experience pain, which makes sense because, that's what our brains are doing. They're sending us a signal of a sensation. Like our hand actually doesn't know what this is. I'm tapping my hand right now, but my brain is telling my hand, hey, something's tapping your hand. You should recognize that. Basically, I'm trying to tell my brain and my body, we're going to put some new tools in place because right now the brain and the body are clashing against each other. And just maybe what would happen if we went back to how we used to handle this, which was this very holistic toolbox, and we centered together and ran at the pain together, brain and body, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. And I have a lot of hope with that because that has worked for me before. When I was doing quantum energy healing, when I was doing Reiki, when I was doing infrared sauna, when I was doing functional IVs, when I was hitting it every which way and left in acupuncture, my pain was tolerable and manageable. And I, for the first time in a long time, didn't have to be on any kind of pain control, nerve medication or anything. And it was a really refreshing time in my life. And that is my goal, to get back to that. But I know that it takes time and I need to just flow with it, I guess, which is frustrating. So this episode is really important to me because I want this not just for me, but for all of us together, because we don't have to live like this. I've experienced what it feels like to not live exactly like this and be in pain 24/7, and it'd be so overwhelming. And I know if maybe we approach it together, we will all be a little bit more accountable and perhaps get there a bit faster, but good Lord, there's the type A in me trying to get to the finish line. Let's dive into my Alex picks of the week. So, first pick of the week is something I'm very excited about. It is Magic Minds. I don't know if y'all have seen this in the store before. It would be sitting near like the little wellness juice shots, but Magic Minds is a mental performance shot and it is awesome. You guys know that I drink coffee, too much coffee. I also have anxiety and panic attack disorder. Those two things do not play super nice together. And when you add prednisone on top of that, oh, fuck that. Like anxiety through the roof. And so I've been on the hunt, like I am for this episode. I've been on the hunt for something that gives me no jitters, gives me that kind of mental clarity that a cup of coffee or 2 or 3 gives you in the morning, or 4. I'm just kidding, Mom. I'm not drinking 4 cups of coffee, just 2 or 3 sometimes, and an Olipop or 2. Anyway, and I had a chronic illness friend tell me about Magic Minds, and she said she just kind of like randomly picked one up at the store one day when she was having awful brain fog and was like, I will do literally anything to feel better right now. I will try this mental performance shot. And it was a game changer for her. She's now obsessed with the morning one that helps you with mental focus. She's obsessed with the nighttime one that helps you with sleepy time. And so me, being the little scientist that I love to be on myself, said, okay, I want to try it too. Guys, no lies. This really actually does help brain fog, and I'm being dead serious. I have noticed a lowering in my jitters. I now only have to drink 1 cup of coffee. I have the same amount of energy as if I had 2 or 3 cups of coffee and an Olipop and a soda. I feel like the focus is actually a lot clearer. Instead, when you drink a cup of coffee and you're like focused, but not really focused, you're just like, you have a lot of energy. With Magic Minds, that's not the case. Like you have the energy spike, but you are focused and you're able to like actually think through problems instead of sitting there thinking about the jitters and how fast your heart is racing and how sweaty you are all of a sudden, and then thinking about how everyone else is noticing that about you. And if you're interested in giving it a whirl, there's a link below in the description. I'll be putting it up on my socials like I always do, and a link on my Shop My. I've got a little discount code for you guys in the bio, Calling in Sick. It's a discount code we always use. And I would love to hear if it's helpful for you too. I think we might have just found a autoimmune brain fog hack. Okay. Second wellness pick of the week is actually an activity for y'all to try. Facial reflexology and lymphatic drainage. I know that like the lymphatics have been so buzzy the last year, on par with vagus nerve activity. Facial reflexology done by someone else is a game changer. It feels so fucking relaxing. I had like snot dripping down my throat during it and felt all of this stuff release. My sweet, sweet masseuse, facial therapist, esthetician, I don't know what the right word is for that, was so informative and like talking me through what she was doing and what the impact was, but then also carving out these times for me to zen out and just be like in a state of bliss. Also, this was the sweetest thing. One of my followers won a giveaway this summer that I did, and her and her mom both are chronically ill, and they followed me. And I guess the mom's sister then somehow started following me. And when they all got together at Thanksgiving, they were talking about calling in sick. And the sister who lives in Austin said, I would like to give Alex a free facial reflexology massage. So I got that this weekend, and it was one, I have never had that happen to me before. I've never had a stranger just randomly treat me to something like that before. And it was so freaking nice. The gesture in and of itself, but also the activity. And now I'm going to be a client for life. I believe in the power of lymphatic draining. My headaches that I've been having literally every single day for months on end have lightened, and I just really liked her energy. So if you live in Austin, Texas, go see my girl Amy. Her company is called Chief Skin Officer. She's in like the Westlake area. It is phenomenal. Link in description for booking with her. Hopefully both of those things will be impactful and helpful for you as you continue to build out your toolbox with me into the new year for managing symptoms and feeling a little bit better. And without further ado, let's dive into the meat of this episode because it is so good. I cannot wait for you guys to meet the amazing, amazing Vanessa Blackstone. She is a breath of fresh air. A little background on Vanessa. She has a master's in social work, and she is one of the leading practitioners in pain reprocessing therapy and works alongside Alan Gordon, who you might know from social media or Instagram. He also wrote the book, The Way Out. Vanessa just released a pain reprocessing therapy workbook that I just started working through the other week. I said it at the top of the episode, but I want to reiterate. The biggest misconception of pain reprocessing therapy is that the pain is in your head and that it's your fault. And that is just simply not the case. That is absolutely false. So neuroplastic pain is not our fault. It's our brain having a trained and learned pathway or habitual action in response to something. So if you have structural damage like inflammation, let's say you have vasculitis and you have inflammation in a nodule in your leg, that has caused pain, rightly so, structurally. Even when I'm not in a flare-up, or if I'm exiting a flare-up, and I should be having less pain because the inflammation is gone, my brain still has learned that pathway, that area in my leg is probably going to hurt by the end of the day. And more often than not, it's hurting by the end of the day, flare-up or not. So the important part of PRT is to teach that brain of ours, hey, what if we switch the lens and we build a new little neuro pathway for us to think about that pain right there? And thank you so much for giving me the signal that there's inflammation there. But what about when there's not inflammation? Can we maybe turn the dial down of alerting me that there's vasculitis there? Because that vasculitis isn't active right now. Now, you approach this in so many different ways, which is obviously why I brought in Vanessa. I want you guys to walk away with a knowing and understanding and appreciation that the pain that you feel and the sensations you feel are not just in your head and made up. Those are very much real. And this exact tool, pain reprocessing therapy, is going to be a new tool in your toolkit to help you in managing how much your body feels that sensation and how you can negotiate with that pain to perhaps feel a little bit better. Because y'all, we deserve to feel better. Without further ado, here's our interview with Vanessa Blackstone. All right, everybody, please help me welcome my amazing, amazing guest today, Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm so excited that we're finally doing this.
Me too. I finished reading your journal, your workbook over the weekend, and
Wow.
it's so well done. It
Oh,
made me
yay.
even more excited for this interview
Ah,
and even more excited to bring awareness to what PRT is and this amazing, amazing field that you work in.
I'm flattered. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for all of the work that you do for us.
Absolutely.
Well, to kick it off, I would love to just give everyone a little bit of background on who you are, how you grew up, how you got involved in the world of pain, the really fun world of pain.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I grew up in a county called San Luis Obispo. I grew up in a way that may not be like typical to what we are used to hearing of at any point. I don't know. I think sometimes we have an idea of what childhood is supposed to look like through movies and through, watching our friends and their backgrounds and just, I don't know, just this like social idea of what a childhood is supposed to look like. But I also understand that every single person does not have this like quote unquote typical childhood. So what I'm about to say, which I'm very transparent about, may not feel typical for many or hard to relate to, but you can find pockets of where you can relate to it, or somebody will really relate to my childhood. So the way that I grew up, I'm the oldest sibling. And my parents were teenagers when they had me. So I grew up already in kind of a chaotic environment. I had and continue to have a really, really, really loving and supportive extended family members, grandparents, uncles, aunts, people who were really present and really there. But the way that I grew up was pretty chaotic. My parents used substances, and our environment was very unpredictable, unstable, moving from place to place. I think I went to maybe 7 different schools. I kind of lost track after a while. It's such a wonder that my friends today are still my friends from grade school because I moved so much. I know.
Whoa, that's
Isn't
an
that cool?
accomplishment in and of itself.
I know. I feel very accomplished just for that alone because I'm still
Yeah.
so close to the people that I went to grade school with. I mean, we see each other all the time. I just saw them last weekend. Um,
I'm glad that
yeah,
you
and
had them. I'm glad that you had those,
oh my God.
like
I
that
don't think
extra circle
I
of support.
Oh my God. I don't think I would have been able to get through everything. I truly, like, I know that we are resilient as human beings, but I dedicate a lot of my resilience to the people around me.
Yeah.
Your support system can make or break your life experiences and how you cope. And I just feel so grateful that I had people, grandparents, aunts and uncles, really, really good friends that are my chosen family to actually like utilize as my tools when I needed to get through something. And there's still that today. So I will definitely say that's a unique part of my journey that I'm very grateful for. But we did grow up in and out of various schools and homes and chaotic situations. We ended up being removed from the home when I was 15.
Okay.
I went away to summer camp. And when I came back, I got the news that we were removed and we weren't going back home. And the next time that we went home was with trash bags to like gather what we could. And then we were put into emergency placement and in foster care from there. So,
Did you get to stay with your siblings during that, or were you guys split up?
it was unsure in the beginning.
I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah. To this day, it's interesting, and I'm sure we'll get into this more, but I still get this little feeling in my body when my partner and when he and I are off to go travel. I still have this feeling of like, oh, we're not going to come back home. And I have to actively remind myself that we're in a different place now, that we are coming back home and that this is different now. But my brain is still, I can feel it. It's still so hardwired to be like, what if I don't come back? Or I'm probably not going to come back. And it's a very casual, automatic thought, but it still comes up to this day from that.
I mean, it makes sense. It's such a formative time in your life.
Yeah.
How could it not
Yeah.
like get ingrained in your like sense of home, which is sense of safety?
Yeah, yeah. And my siblings and I, we were together in not right away, just because things were so chaotic, but we were lucky enough that eventually we got to all be placed in the same home. And it still wasn't good. Foster care was really awful, and a lot of the experiences from it were not regulating in the slightest. So it's always interesting. They're like, we're going to take you out of this really unsafe situation only to put you in a situation that is like still not great. And of course, there's no perfect, right? There's no perfect solution, I know. But yeah, I think just experiencing chronic, unpredictable, toxic stress, from the chaos of childhood to the attempt of people trying to save us. It kind of just was unrelenting, and that's just kind of how I grew up.
And that is the perfect breeding ground for developing a chronic illness later on in life.
I mean, surprise.
Surprise, surprise,
Sure
nobody.
Yeah. It really is. And I actually find a little bit of humor in it sometimes. Like I'm a dark humor
I am too.
person.
I think we have to.
We have to. And I sometimes find myself being like, well, this is expected, and just kind of giggling about it. And I have a best friend that can relate, and like one thing after another. And I don't know, my approach as a therapist too is omitting some of that toxic positivity.
Totally.
And just being like dark humored and honest about this crappy stuff that keeps happening to us, and finding a way to be like, well, I don't know what else to do about any of this.
We don't have to be okay with it.
Totally.
We can cry. We also can laugh.
Yes. I find it helps.
Very, very much. I think it gives you like a sense of control or ownership over the situation if you're allowed to like decide what your emotional reaction is.
Yeah, absolutely. Empowerment,
Yes.
like I get to choose how I respond. I can cry, but I can also find some humor in it all, no matter how
100%,
dark.
100%. Okay, so that would be very formative, whatever that word is. I'm not quite sure today. On your decision to go, I would think, into therapy.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, when we were in foster care, when we were placed back with our mom, and you have to go through a whole process where they assess whether or not social services is fine with leaving you alone. And we were required to go to family therapy. And I just remember sitting in front of this family therapist where I'd never seen someone stand up to my mom before and like put her in her place and say, like, stop taking up so much space. Let your kids have their story. And like, can you please be quiet so that they can talk? I'd never seen anybody do that. And I just felt so empowered by her. And when I had my one-on-one time with her after family therapy, I would ask her all these questions about like, what is it like to do this for other people? And she would just say like, it's quite simply like an honor. That's all that it is. She's like, the fact that somebody can trust me this much, it means a lot, even if they don't like what I have to say. And I just loved that. And I just gravitated towards wanting to do that for other people. I just didn't know what direction until I had my own pain symptoms.
That makes sense. Okay, so walk us through then from, gosh, I mean, I have like a billion more questions though about your childhood, but I know that we don't have time for all of that today. So how did you navigate like creating safety or regulation for yourself during those formative years? Because I'm sure there were like tools that you started to develop, whether you were like conscious of developing those or not.
Totally. There is this gastroenterologist that is the president of, they changed their name from the Psychophysiologic Disorder Association. They're now, I think, called Symptomatic, if I get that right. His name is Dr. David Clark, and he's wonderful. And one time he gave a talk to my team of clinicians and was saying that all of these personality traits that we often equate to somebody being type A, right? Like a perfectionist, people pleaser, like powering through, problem solving.
It doesn't resonate at all over here.
Never. Are you kidding? Not
that
me,
doesn't
not
sound like
you.
me.
No. He was saying that all of those traits are, yes, a part of a type A personality, but he said they are also an example of a child making the best out of a bad situation. And as soon as he said that, I suddenly realized like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not a people pleaser because I just have no backbone, what I would say to myself, right? I'm a people pleaser because I had to in order to survive. And then in adulthood, I don't know how to turn that off. I'm really good at problem solving because I'm the oldest sibling. I had to take care of everybody and then pretend like everything was okay. So I got good at powering through, and then like be the, the star of the party type of thing, just to take the focus away from like how much pain I was in, and emotionally and physically, and I did all of these very type A-esque things out of survival. And then in adulthood, I did not know how to turn that off and actually slow down. So I would say the things that got me caught in my pain cycle were also the things that helped me survive. Like, I am very grateful for my ability to power through and to problem solve and to people please and my perfectionism. I just didn't know where the dial was to turn it down when I needed to.
That totally resonates and makes sense. And when I look back at my childhood, and we candidly had very, very different childhoods, the trauma I think that I might have developed that personality trait from was simply from being sick as a little kid and growing up sick and not knowing how to fit in or like, I don't know, have people take me seriously because it was an invisible illness and whatnot. So it's interesting to hear like there are different flavors of where this comes from. Very. And you're right. It's not not having a backbone. It's actually something maybe we can be a little grateful for because it's propelled us and allowed us to survive in this world that maybe isn't super built for people with chronic illnesses or chronic pain or chronic whatever.
Absolutely. It's amazing how resilient, but I always say resiliency is exhausting, how resilient we are. Yes. Because no matter your childhood experiences, you will figure out how to just get through it.
Yeah.
No matter who is the perpetrator or what is perpetrating the trauma, you will just figure it out. But then somewhere down the line, after or in the midst of the chaos continuing, we're like, I don't know what to do with all of this. And then that's where helpful modalities can come into play.
You have to figure it out again. And that's exactly what this episode is for. Okay, so walk me through when you're on your own at first.
So when I first started having symptoms, I was actually 11. My first symptoms were chronic migraines. And it's interesting because they're kind of like a rite of passage with the women in my family. Like, oh, we all get migraines, like especially like hormonally, like around menstruation and such. Yeah. And so it was almost like expected.
Like normalized.
Yeah, totally. And I just thought that that's a part of having menstruation is having a migraine.
Yep.
And that's just how it showed up for me. Like once I started going through puberty and once I did hit that next phase, I just kind of would have them cyclically every month and they would last a couple of days. It would start with a little bit of vertigo, a little bit of like an aura, like having a hard time seeing out of my peripherals. I would get nauseous, I'd throw up, be really dizzy, would need to close the curtains and then have really bad cramps and was just like, okay, this is normal. Call off of school, just like all these typical things. But then the interesting thing that I realized later is that I hated being home from school just because it wasn't safe. It didn't feel good unless I was with my grandparents.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of like needing to power down and be home, but also pretending like I was fine and going to school anyways and getting sick there and just, you know, a lot of kind of rough hurdles. So that started early. You had to, you know, shout really loudly and things had to be obvious in order for you to see that it wasn't good. And I feel like that's what my symptoms were. But then again, they get kind of seen as like a part of puberty or just a part of like genetics or just something that I should be expected to feel. And so people were really empathetic, but I also think that people just normalized it as well. Our whole family is kind of used to chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. That hits home. My chaos was everyone was sick in my family.
Yeah.
My dad had cancer. My brother had brain cancer. Like everybody was sick.
Wow.
And so likewise, I was just really used to being in this up and down yo-yo of things that when life is calm, it's like when you step away from the chaos and all of a sudden your body's supposed to go into this like rest and digest state, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's when the symptoms flare.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. And that's how it happened for me. It just kind of kept perpetuating and then got older and was playing really rough sports. I played rugby for a long time. It's my favorite sport.
That's really badass.
Yeah. I'm like, it has a place in my heart. My goal is to go to New Zealand one day and watch them play because they're the best, in my opinion.
I'm seeing it for you. It's going to happen.
Yes. It's going to happen. I feel it. But yeah, I played rugby for a long time and that's a fun sport. You just get hurt a lot.
Probably did not help the migraines.
No, not at all. I remember having a chiropractor or a physician at some point, I can't remember who, somebody said, you know, this sport is going to make your migraines worse. And I just remember being like, I don't care. I have so much bigger things to worry about. Like if the least thing that I worry about is pain, I'm used to being in pain. So I was like, okay. Like, and I also just wanted to play my sport. I was 15 and I just like didn't want to stop. And so,
yeah, you also had no being thrown at you from so many other directions that like that was probably a hard commit and you probably wanted to channel out frustration through sports.
Yes. There's this thing, and I'm sure this is used in a lot of high school sports, but there's this thing called Hell Week. where you have to, right? Where there's like a week of like intensive training and
The worst, but also the best.
the best. You had to be there at like 5 a.m. and it's hell. It's going to be awful. I loved it. My friends were always like, oh, this is the worst. I'm like, I am thriving. I feel so good. And I loved just like taking a beating for no reason.
Yeah.
I actually
pushing
got
your
something
body
out of it.
super hard.
Yeah. I loved it because
too.
it felt like it was discomfort that was within my control. Like I asked for it. I wanted it and I was excited to give it. So anytime somebody was like, oh, if you hit your head again and get another concussion, these things could get worse. Or like, you know, like you're causing neck pain that could possibly contributing to like your migraines that started to spread outside of menstruation. So now they were happening like a couple times a month. They would knock me out for 3 to 5 days. I would get really bad vertigo. The way that I described it is like the ground was always a memory foam mattress. Like I never felt stable. Mm-hmm.
Great descriptor, but that sounds fucking awful.
It was the worst. And then there was always this, I always describe, I'm a very visual and like audio person, that I would describe it as if like somebody put a speaker to my ear and it was just on this really dull bass that just kept going like wah, wah, wah. That's how it felt in my ears. And I always felt like I was walking on memory foam. That's just like was the baseline. But
lovely.
Yeah. Great, right? And but I would figure it out. I can honestly say I don't remember pretty much anything that I learned in high school because I was just, life was not allowing it. Home was chaotic. My body felt like crap. I had the worst menstrual cycles. The migraines were getting worse. I started to have neck pain. And all of these things kind of started to spiral after a while. And that was kind of just the baseline. And through going into foster care and then moving my senior year to go live with my mom in a different county where we were placed. And like, there was so much lack of stability that it almost felt like having these symptoms were the one like predictable thing that I could rely on. So
that's really interesting.
It's like the enemy you know is better than the enemy you don't know. Like I don't want to block the person on my social media that I hate. I would rather keep them there so I can see them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what it felt like. I could rely on like not feeling good when it would come up. And I would know that that was my time to like close the curtains and rest and decompress and be able to say, hey, I'm out for a couple days. And it was understandable. And it just felt like, it felt like a familiar bad friend.
Was the taking space for yourself to recover and rest, was it respected? So like that was something that you also could kind of cope in a way with?
It was until we moved back after foster care. Once we got replaced back with our parent, it was right back to like, you know, Vanessa is the co-parent. She's the co-partner. She is like all these things. So I'm honestly kind of surprised that I even left home the way that I did right when I graduated high school, because knowing me, I typically would have just stayed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was something in me that was like, I know that I can do more than just this.
Yeah.
And so I left, even though it was quite frankly, like the worst day ever, because I felt like I was abandoning my siblings who felt like my kids. But
sure.
I don't know. I knew there was something else that I was supposed to do. I knew that I wasn't supposed to stay stuck with this parent being a co-parent.
Were your siblings supportive of you?
They were excited, but it was so tough. Yeah, it was really bittersweet. My little brother has epilepsy, and just like leaving him and not knowing how he was going to be taken care of. I use these as analogies of a lot of ways of like talking to my own clients, or even reminding myself about what it's like to just let go of uncertainty, or let go of certainty and embrace uncertainty, and how fucking hard that is.
It's so hard.
It's so hard. And I think about it today, and I'm like, and I have to remind myself sometimes when I'm like, oh, this trip that we're planning, like, I don't know, you know, what it's going to look like when we get there. And I'm like, you know what? You've done some much harder things. You're going to be fine. Like having to use that as a baseline, because that was a really hard thing to do, was moving away.
I can only imagine, but what angel was watching over you to help make that decision and help you commit to that and see it through, because it put you on the trajectory that you are on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Native American, and I'm registered with a tribe called the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and I hold on to that very strongly. Even if we didn't practice it as heavily in my household as much as I would have liked to, I always believed like there was something that has my back. I didn't know what it was. I just know that there was something. And what I learned later on in life is like, it's okay to not know what it is that has your back. Or if you know, and that's really your like focused belief system, that's wonderful. I just always knew that there was something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I knew deep down that I was going to be okay. And I feel like I really believed it, even when things felt awful. And I don't think it's toxic positivity for me. I think it's my way of just saying like, I have no answers and maybe I don't have to because I don't have control over everything, which is wild because a type A personality doesn't usually allow that in.
Well, I think it's hope.
Yeah.
Like hope is not toxic positivity.
Totally.
Hope is something that is just innately human. And if you can hold on to it and claim it, you might as well white knuckle that thing forever because it opens up your world, I think, in ways that are unexpected.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's dive into PRT because there are a lot of things about hope and letting go of the unknown and uncertainty and sitting with it within that field of research and study.
Absolutely.
So what are the different types of what are the different types of pain? And then what are the different types of healing modalities and how does PRT, pain reprocessing therapy, fit into that?
Yeah. So pain is such a catch-all word, and I like to broaden it a little bit because sometimes if people see the word pain, they're like, yeah, but like my chronic migraines, I don't know how to describe it. Like I don't fully describe them as pain. I've also had like chronic hives and like IBS symptoms during grad school, really bad IBS symptoms. And then a lot of like pelvic floor sensations during sex, after sex, and around menstruation that led to like so many different birth controls that I would try. So with that knowledge of my own journey, I like to tell people like, if you can't describe your symptoms with pain, feel free to change it. We can call it symptom reprocessing therapy.
Ooh.
We can call it sensation reprocessing therapy, like really whatever you want. Like pain is just a quick catch-all word that is like an umbrella that describes many different symptom presentations. So if somebody's symptoms are more abstract, that's okay. It still works for you. It's the same approach. What I like to tell clients is the part of your brain that may be causing sensations of like neuroplastic sensations of vertigo versus like neuroplastic sensations of back pain. It's coming from the same part of your brain. That's why the treatment is the same. So kind of like to dial down the complexity because I know it can be really hard to relate to that word if that's not you.
And that identity too, I think like you don't even have to say you're in pain or you have chronic pain, but if you know that you don't feel as good as you can, then this is for you.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. So changing it to whatever works best for you. And as far as the symptom presentation, we're talking about anything from back pain to IBS to TMJ to tinnitus to pelvic floor pain to like the twitching sensation that your eye gives when you're feeling really stressed or underslept or
the worst.
The most annoying thing. It happened to me this morning. My eye was
so
twitching
sorry.
all morning. Yeah, thank you.
You sit there and you're like, everyone's looking at my twitching eye right now. I can tell.
See it. They see it.
And no one does ever.
No, never. My grandfather said that to me once. I was like, oh my God, they noticed this and they noticed that. And he was like, honey, I love you, but what makes you think people care about you that much? I was like, oh,
you're like, well, my earth just shattered.
Harsh.
Thank you so much.
I was like, it's true, but damn.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Literally. And so I just like to cover as much as possible. So people know, like, even if you're just coming in with anxiety, ruminating thoughts that you feel like you're on this hamster wheel with, this work will still work for you because the approach is the same because it's coming from the same part of your brain.
And what part of the brain is it coming from?
The nervous system, the part of your brain whose job it is, sole purpose in life is just to protect you and keep you safe, right? Your nervous system. Yeah, absolutely. It's like an overprotective parent, like a helicopter parent. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to play on the playground with your friends and your nervous system is like, oh my God, are you okay?
There could be a tornado in 13 minutes, even though it's sunny outside.
Totally. And your nervous system is kicking in and it's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are we okay? Is everything okay? Oh, maybe it's not okay, right? And it's your brain's job to do that. Now, as I mentioned before, we're trying to dial it down. We don't know that our traits that get us stuck, the symptoms that we ruminate about, and the way that we respond to them is essentially like a dial in our brain, and it's turned all the way up, and it's stuck at a 10 out of 10. And we are just trying to dial it down so that we can respond to sensations through a different lens, feel safer in our body, soothe that nervous system to say, I hear you, but I don't need you to be so loud in this moment. Let's dial it down and tend to ourselves in this moment to moment basis. Essentially, PRT is rewiring the way in which we respond to pain in order to greatly reduce or eradicate our symptoms.
I love it. I love that it's not all or nothing, first and foremost.
Totally.
Because so much of all medicine feels like it should be all or nothing.
Yeah.
And then you find out as a patient, most everything is not all or nothing, and it's not black and white. And medicine is very much an art and a science. So to know that there is like a world where you can just slowly chip at this and turn that dial down over time at a rate that's comfortable for you and still makes you feel like you're in your own body and still respecting those signals going off. Because like we said at the top of the episode, at a time, that was really necessary for them to be loud like that. And it's helped and saved us and protected us. But it doesn't serve us well when it turns into pain. So I guess my question is, for the audience listening that's going, okay, but I have like structural issues or I have inflammation and I have damaged my body. Is this still for me?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm going to use an example so that you know how might this fit for.
That's how I learn best. A lot of examples.
Right? Give me a case study. Give me a real example. One of my first clients, I believe like one of my first 5, when I started at the Pain Psychology Center, where I am the executive director of now. When I started 7 years ago, I think, one of my first 5 clients was an RA client, diagnosed with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, like absolutely there in imaging. But this person was, I mean, they're amazing. I'm very close with them. We still talk to this day, more so about like complaints about a spouse or something, things like that. But they reached out because they thought, you know, there might be something else to why I feel what I feel, because it makes sense for my diagnosis, but I don't know if it needs to happen this way. And the way that it was happening was so much pain in the beginning of the day, really difficult time putting a shirt on over the head, just firing up those shoulder joints and the joints in the wrists, and fearing, you know, the inflammation for the rest of the day. Yep. A lot of fear around dropping anything in the morning, a cap, something that they were using to, you know, cap on a toothpaste, something they were using to get ready. And so much fear about like, I don't want to drop that because I won't be able to pick it up. Right?
Yeah.
And then going down the stairs, not going up. That was an interesting thing. Not going up the stairs, but descending or descent. Yeah. Descending is down.
Yeah.
Do ascending.
I do it too. And left and right. I'm like this.
Oh my God. All the time. I have to double. Whereas
our brain has space for really important things, but not those.
Yes. Those things go out, but I can tell you how to apply this modality like nothing. And so down the stairs, not up, opening the sliding glass door in the morning for the dogs. But then throughout the day, not much was causing the symptom. They would sit at their computer for hours and hours, work all day, make dinner for everybody, clean up at the end of the night. Okay, maybe there was some discomfort, but not enough like the beginning. And you would say, sure, like waking up in the morning, your body's kind of just coming up online, right? Stiff, all those things that we know to associate. But also, we have to look at what's happening in the structural presentation of these symptoms and say, does it need to be that intense? And does it need to be these specific condition responses? There is something verifiably structurally going on. We see it in imaging. It's there. But does it need to happen in this way? And does it need to color the rest of the day? Right? And does it need to be a part of this big narrative that's like, oh, please don't drop something, because if I do, I won't be able to, you know. And we started kind of picking that all apart and seeing that this can absolutely apply for structural presentation of symptoms.
I love what you just said of how does it need to look like it? It's not should it, which I think when you're invisible illness patient, you get told, well, you shouldn't be having those symptoms all the time. This is not that. This is saying, does it need to be that intense? And I think that is so welcoming to people in our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So once you get in that mode, then what?
Yeah. And the way that I can acknowledge it in there too is that we can look at this, like the way that we approach this is through understanding this amplification of symptoms. It's like you already have something going on. Let's say it's a 2 or a 3 out of 10. I don't know, making up a number. But what happens with your nervous system is your nervous system, being that helicopter parent, puts a hearing aid onto what you're already experiencing and dials it up so that now you're getting it at a louder volume. And we are just trying to dial down that hearing aid, right? So what you're feeling is really there, whether it's structural, whether it's neuroplastic.
Does our body overcompensate? Like when you start doing this work and it's like, oh, well, let me throw in another hearing aid then. Let me try to ramp this up even more.
And
is there a rebound?
Oh my gosh, for sure. And what we say in this work, that always really excites me. It excites many of us that do this, that practice this modality, because what it means is that your nervous system is trying to figure out where to put the danger. It's so used to having the danger that it's trying to figure out where it needs to put it. It's like, okay, I don't need to put it there because you're doing things differently, so let me put it somewhere else. When symptoms start bouncing around, that's a good thing. We are noticing that the brain is recalibrating itself.
Ooh, I love that. That is awesome. And also would be very empowering, I think.
Absolutely. Right. If you understand, if you feel like you can label what you're experiencing through the lens of pain reprocessing therapy, learning the psychoeducation about what is going on in your body and your brain, creating the language and the new narrative and new tools to apply, it really gives you a sense of empowerment so that when you are struggling, you feel like you have something to use to explain what is going on, which is, I'm sure, as you know, and I know, like, so important. I just need to know what's happening here because I can't sit in this forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with a friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue. I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.